mobility of students. So with these initiatives, we are beginning to see more students staying in Asia, moving from one country to another, but still the majority of students are going to the West. So Asia as a whole is at the sending end of international students. More than half of world international students are from this region called Asia Pacific. So for your reference, these are top countries in sending students in, again, sorry, in Asia, China, Korea, and India. Used to be Malaysia, used to send lots of students, but thanks to the internationalization, I think Malaysia, in one way or the other, have been successful to retain their students. So this student mobility, in a way, reflects or mirrors the overall pattern of people's mobility in the region. For example, in Australia, Japan, to some extent Korea, there has been increasing number of international foreigners in their territories. As you can see in the left chart, also increasing is the number of students from other countries. So it kind of mirrors the student mobility and mobility in general. Of course, this also reflects the evolution of geopolitical development in the region. So with these trends, so what are the challenges? What are the issues? There are two issues that I would like to highlight. Firstly, quality. Well, when it comes to quality, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to monitor the quality of higher education. But there are several ways of looking at the qualities. Number one, the linkage between enrollment and so-called labor productivity as measured by, excuse me, output or product per worker. So in a nutshell, between these two variables, there seems to be strong association or relationship, if not the causality. So it means that the higher the enrollment, the higher the labor productive. As a result, the higher the national income measured in terms of GNP, GDP, in whatever terms. What about the science engineering graduates? An interesting way of looking at the quality from another angle is to look at the number of so-called STEM graduates from science, technology, and engineering, how the STEM graduates are related in one way or the other to another value, which measures the intellectual property. For example, patent. As you can see, many countries, mostly OECD countries, are on the trend line, meaning that the higher the STEM graduate number of STEM graduates, the higher the patents, etc. Can you hear me clearly in the back? Okay, I use my microphone this way. So am I supposed to look at the... Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you. Oh, okay. So there are some interesting so-called outliers. If you look at this chart, like Indonesia, Philippines, they are at the bottom when it comes to patent, they are upper middle when it comes to STEM graduates, meaning these countries somehow produce a large number of STEM graduates, and yet they haven't been able to produce the patents. Korea is a little bit better, but it's not quite on the trend line, meaning that there's room to improve. Many times, the productivity of higher education is measured in terms of SCI. I think policy makers like these kind of indicators, me included, when in my previous job, because there are not many measurable indicators when it comes to productivity of higher education. So again, from this reason, only 3-4 countries stand out, namely China, Japan, India, Iran, and Korea, which produce quite a substantial number of SCI. But the rest of Asia is quite lagging behind. One of the reasons may be language, which is many of these publications are, of course, in majority language, English. Okay, so now let me turn to the equity issue. I have no intention to show every aspect of this quality, and just to show you how this expansion have accompanied with this some challenging issues, equity and relevance. Now, if you look at the countries, there are variance between countries. Again, some countries in Asia Pacific, what it shows is you can interpret this in many different ways. One way is for countries like China, Indonesia, because they are on the trend line, there's room for them to increase the higher education. There's room to expand the system. Whereas in case of Korea, the system has expanded already, but the country is not capturing enough the outcome of this expansion. Income and enrollment, there's a quite strong association between the wealth and access to higher education in our countries in the region. As you can see, the variance differs by country. For example, in Philippines, the gap is quite high. For the richest 20%, almost 70% have access to higher education, whereas the poorest 20% is less than 10%. It's quite dramatic difference. Whereas some other countries, the gap is rather smaller. And yet the point is that there are differences. It's very kind of you, Professor. It's not too late to have this. Thank you. Something wrong with my finger. Okay, okay. I think because this is too obvious, our smart audience will all understand. Gender gap, men and women. When it comes to bachelor's and master's degree, the female are not doing well enough, but the gap is not so big. But when it comes to advanced degree, like a doctoral degree, there is huge gap in general. Again, one need to think about how ODL, MOOCs can fill the gap, narrow the gap. This is one of the reasons why I'm showing you this. Even with the same, oops, you may feel overwhelmed with this very complicated chart. What it shows is by country, with the same level of education, in this case, university degree, the earnings that men and women get are different. Typically, women are getting less than men. So I'm talking about the return on investment again. So again, this may address the both quality and equity issue. How do we use MOOCs to fill the gap? Of course, this cannot be done in education sector alone. It has to involve the productive sector, labor sector, and others. But nonetheless, this is something that ODL and MOOCs can address. Okay, perhaps I should pause here to see if you have any comments, questions. I'm not sure if you are following me. Is it clear? Thank you. So again, the reason for me to show this to you is, speaking about ODL and MOOCs, we need to contextualize, especially Asia Pacific, including Korea, where we stand. In a nutshell, Asia Pacific, there is a great room for the reason to expand higher education, especially for women and for the marginalized. But if we were to rely on conventional approach, using bricks and mortar kind of approach, it may take decades, if not centuries, to reach the world average and beyond. That's why I think ODL and MOOCs are so important in this context, Asia Pacific. Perhaps Korea may be exceptional in that regard, but still, in case of Korea, you have so many senior people. For them, they need to upgrade their skills and competence to be functional in the changing economy. With that, I tried to get some most recent data on ODL. Unfortunately, it has to be only through Asian Association of Open University, AAOU. Is anybody engaged in AAOU? Yes, thank you. And sorry for using your data. But in a way, this very well shows the distribution of it across Asia Pacific. I'm not going into the detail. It should be self-explanatory. In East Asia, including Korea, I understand that there are many other Korean ODL institutes which are not listed. But nonetheless, this in a way captures the distribution, again, across different parts of Asia. So South Asia is very active thanks to India. Likewise, Southeast Asia, these 2-3 countries are very active, including Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. So overall, this is the pie chart shows the distribution of ODL institutions in Asia Pacific. For those who are member or associate members of AAOU. So these are individual cases. More than 70 universities in Asia Pacific now deliver instruction exclusively through distance education. These are some country examples. Universitas Terbuka from Indonesia, and KNOU, etc. By the way, I realized that my colleagues in our office did a quite extensive literature review. Turns out that Professor In Sung Jung, who is with us, they used her articles more than several times. As you can see, the source. Thank you, Professor Jung. So, role of ODL in higher education, two things, very obvious. More than anything else, it increased access to higher education and complement and respond to growing demand, as I explained earlier, and also decrease cost of higher education. The best would be decrease cost of higher education at not losing the quality or even increasing the quality. This is quite challenging. So UNESCO, through higher education communique back in 2009, endorses this approach of ODL and use of technology in higher education in general and OER. Brief history of ICT, I don't need to explain, this should be self-explanatory. Professor Lee, initially I didn't have any idea who the audience are, so I prepared just in case. But now I realize all of you are the experts, so I don't need to explain this, skipping this. Now, imagine, where is this place? Does anybody have any clue as to this map? Raise your hand. Yes, you're from, I should not ask you, from Canada. Nobody knows where it is. It's part of Canada. That's why I'm not asking him. Yeah? There is a place called in Canada, Prince Edward Island, north of Nova Scotia, right? The far eastern part of Canada, where you may remember, especially ladies in the room, the Anne of Green Gables. In Korean, 빨간머리 Anne, I'm not sure. That's the home of the novel, famous novel. Why am I mentioning this? Because after extensive search, we learned that this is the place where a professor coined this concept of MOOCs by the name of David Cormier. I don't know any of you know him. He is one of those who coined the concept. Of course, before that, there was a debate on massive open online course, uh, connectivism and connective knowledge, how people learn through connectivity. So using this notion is slowly evolved into new approach, and then finally the concept MOOC was coined and kind of endorsed by experts and beyond. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's very recent. So when it comes to definition, one can define MOOCs in different ways, but this is one of the definition coming from our UNESCO Institute specializing in technology and education based in Moscow, Russia. So as I said, it's based on the key principle of new theory of learning called connectivism. And open courseware that includes video lecture with subtitles, text, lecture notes, homework, assignments, tests, and final exams. And after successful accomplishment of MOOC course, student can get certificate or get the credit. So these are the key features of MOOCs, and to me, it's still the definition is loose, but it's better than nothing. So I'm quoting this definition here. For those of you who may have your own definition, you can use this as reference. So still, to clarify what we mean by MOOCs, I try to compare these three things: OER, ODL, and MOOCs. I hope you will all agree with me. We had a very lengthy internal debate before coming to this workshop because I wanted to make sure that this is something experts can agree. When it comes to open access, OER, yes. ODL, no. Think of KNOU. KNOU programs are not open to everybody, right? So the answer is no. MOOCs, yes. Open content, OER, yes. ODL, it could be open or closed. Likewise, MOOCs also. And so on and so forth. If you look at the bottom of the table, quality assurance. Quality assurance, there's no guarantee when it comes to OER because there's no curator, individual organization. Whereas ODL, MOOCs, you can get some guarantee of quality. To me, this Professor Chung is not agreeing. So at the end of the day, if you look at this, the graph on the right, MOOCs as part of OER can be a subset of both ODL and OER, but more on ODL side. Whereas this overlap between ODL and OER could be ODL higher education institutions using OER, etc. So MOOCs, as it stands now, can be regarded as part of or subset of ODL using OER. You can challenge my own way of defining this, but this is, I think, as it stands, again, it could be a fair description of what is happening in MOOCs. Now let me turn to major players in MOOCs. As you may all know, we see Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, Udemy. Anybody from these providers? Raise your hand. No, I'm not going to be critical. As you can see, these are all the Western-based providers. And also note that at the bottom of this table, when it comes to certification, meaning degrees, diplomas, they are charging. Even though nominal charges, they are charging fees. But often, MOOCs are known as free, but that is not true. They do charge for the state certification, right? So there's also what we can term as quasi-MOOCs, because this ITNU and CANU, again, I'm sure that all of you are familiar with what these are. They do not strictly under this definition that I just came up, but very similar to MOOCs. So these are the, so what do they do with the Asian players, Coursera, edX, etc.? It turns out that in Korea, again, correct me if I'm wrong, as of now, this is the most recent information. We have a KAIST with a Coursera. Where's KNOU? We have Seoul National University, Yonsei University, Sungkyuan University, all of them. Yes. This may be not correct, but according to available date information, there are quite, well, the numbers are still very few, meaning this is a new. So there are MOOCs in Asia Pacific which work or partner with these global players, and also there are MOOCs which are developed by our member states themselves, like the one in Philippines, etc. In China, they have this. I think recently they are partnering with the Coursera. I understand there's a speaker from China. No. Again, this is very recent. The aim is to deliver these courses in Chinese language. Likewise, in India. Can I have 10 more minutes? Okay, thank you. I can finish in 10 minutes. In India, this is again very, very recent news. Maybe in 2-3 days' time, you know, the newly elected Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, who I understand is kind of a believer of market and very dynamic leader in India. He is going to initiate Indian MOOCs on a massive scale, working with the IIT, Indian version of MIT. They are trying to develop Indian MOOCs in few days' time. No, in the few days they are going to launch. I checked this before I left to Bangkok, and I forgot the name, Soam something. I don't know what it means in Hindi language. So these gigantic countries are now coming into this area called the MOOCs. As I said, in case of Philippines, I understand they develop their own platform, etc. So we see some very recent initiatives, of course, including Thailand, Malaysia, and Japan. The UN system also use MOOCs. You may be surprised. I was actually surprised to see that many institutions, UN agencies, including our own, use MOOCs to deliver courses. In case of UNESCO, I see it in primary education, and IIT courses cover many issues, cloud computing, bioethics for journalists, and so on and so forth. Look at the UNHCR, which is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. So refugees, this can be a very good solution. So UNHCR is looking into this. And also UNEP. UNEP recently, I think they are going to launch one course next month. I learned this 2 weeks ago in Apia, Samoa, where they have a big, what we call Small Island Developing States Conference 2014. And the UN system and small island countries from the Caribbean, Indian, and Pacific Ocean gathered together to discuss and find solutions for the unique challenges that the small island countries face. So one of which is the natural disaster, rising sea level and climate change. So UNEP, more than anything, any other agencies develop this course to respond to the emerging demand. Courses offered mostly non-STEM area, it turns out, humanities, social science, which do not require much of investment, initial cost. Language majority in English. The majority students look at this 26 or older, meaning that those who already complete their first degree are entering into MOOCs to brush up their skills. And the women are not enough represented, as you can see, 29%. This is, by the way, survey from Harvard X and MIT X. According to Coursera survey, The majority students, of course, are from North America and Europe, Asia taking up 26%. And majority students are at the master's and bachelor's degree level. By the way, like a typical ODL, very few students complete. I shouldn't say very few for KNOU. KNOU has been doing a remarkable job, but very few complete this MOOCs course. So this is very interesting analysis, how learners behave in the MOOCs course. At the right bottom, you see majority of restaurants just enter or view the courses and just drop out halfway through the course, whereas those still there is another group which completes the course with a grade average above in a nutshell, cutting point. And also note that in this area, my finger is not going to, okay. Look at this area. People or learners in this group are those who do not complete, well, they complete the courses without meeting the course requirement. Isn't that interesting? In other words, they are hanging there without, perhaps forgetting about the credits, certificates, etc. These may be those who enjoy learning, but perhaps, by the way, again, this is from MIT and Harvard. Okay. So I'm skipping this. So pros and cons. This should be self-explanatory based on what I just explained. In terms of pros, is, well, extend the reach of higher education institutions, of course, and access to high-quality education. These are the potentials. On the other hand, the cons, most courses are only in English. The completion is very low, and the context could be largely irrelevant to ASEAN context. Note that this is very important. For Koreans, for ASEAN countries, I'm not saying that's because it's from West, it's not irrelevant, but the reality of ASEAN, where many countries are still at the middle income state, and things are developing very fast, these contents could be better suited to Asian people. That's the whole point. And with that, our UNESCO Institute Special in Technology, IIT, also weighing its benefits against the risk. So I'm not going to explain this. Should be self-explanatory, except for one point. If you look at the risk, the MOOCs phenomena may be overhyped. There are many past examples of renowned higher education institutions becoming involved with the new online learning platforms or technology which failed to deliver. This is kind of, I think, very legitimate warning, knowing that MOOCs are very recent. There hasn't been enough study about MOOCs. We don't know yet enough about how MOOCs are helping learners in different ways. So with that, I will end 2 points for Kmoocs. Firstly, MOOCs as a tool to fulfill the principal functions of a higher education institution rather than a new phenomenon. I'm saying this because higher education, after all, delivers 3 things: teaching, knowledge generation, and services or outreach. So one needs to think about how MOOCs in general, Kmoocs or Asian MOOCs, can help strengthen this very fundamental function of higher education, which should not change. So with that, the last point. So because MOOCs are massive, online open massive courses, so pedagogical aspect, I think, is very, very critical. For example, one needs to build on the last bullet point, the existing strength of teaching and learning. Unless we have a quality pedagogy, I don't think people will view and stay on until they complete. Professor Jung, would you agree? I think this is very important. I think we should build on the existing strength. So that is why I think it is number 4. My second point, so need to think about the proper policy framework at the national level and institutional level. In UK and US, these books developed not because of government intervention. I just want to tell my fellow ex-colleagues from the government, don't think that the government funding can do everything. But funding is important, but government need to stay away with the kind of innovation that institutional higher education should bring. Of course, other than funding and supporting this initiative, I think this is important for latecomer like Korea when it comes to MOOCs. On the other hand, at the national institutional level, I think a coherent, systematic approach may be something that is in great need, especially, as I said, the emphasis on pedagogy. You have to stay with the fundamentals, teaching and learning. Center for Teaching and Learning, for example, need to be rather strengthened. And this kind of institutional policy may be something, President Joe is not here, I think the leaders of universities need to think about. For this, I have a couple of ideas for those who work in the government and higher education. When you think about Kmooc, Kmooc can be a very good platform, what we call official development assistance, for Korea to help other countries in terms of enhancing their capacity in science, technology, in all areas of higher education by offering these courses or sharing Korea's experience. I'm telling this to my fellow ex-officials to think about. It doesn't require lots of resources, but if we have a good contents platform mounted on Kmooc, whatever you call it, could be very, very useful for middle income or low income countries in the region and beyond. So I'm making a strong suggestion for Kmoocs for official development. Asian MOOCs, if countries can agree, it would be very good to develop MOOCs in English languages, in their own languages, contents that suit their own purposes, etc. So if this workshop or seminar can expand it, if there's another occasion, I would strongly encourage to forge this alliance among Asian countries to launch kind of Asian MOOC. Then UNESCO, especially in Bangkok, will be happy to work with you. So with that, I thank you once again for your kind attention. And if you have any questions, do I have any time to burning question? Clarification, or you can. Okay, I'll be around at least for several more hours. So if you have any question, come to me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Lee and Kay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kwang Joo-kim, for your insightful speech. He tackled the main issues about the MOOC, the country's sex and the quality assurance and the government policy and dropout rates, etc. His speech was very timely and helpful. I'm very sorry for not having introduced his career and profile. He was the Harvard PhD and the deputy minister at the Ministry of Education in Korea, and he worked for UNESCO for a long time. He's so well known, and he is the pride of the Korean education. Okay, would you please give him a big hand again? Thank you. Okay, so as you know that we have just reversed our schedule, so we see some video from some well-known scholars. To commemorate today's event, Two well-known scholars have sent us videos of congratulations. Sir John Daniel was the former president of the Open University in the UK and the Summer of Learning, and Professor Fred Mulder, the former president of Netherlands Open University and the UNESCO chair in OER. But unfortunately, Fred Mulder's video is not ready today in the morning. We hope to play it in the afternoon session. So let us watch the videos of Sir John Daniel.
It is a pleasure to join you by video at this workshop. Exactly 2 years ago, in 2012, I spent the month of September as a visiting fellow at KNOU and enjoyed a wonderful month in Seoul. KNOU asks its visiting fellows to write a research paper, and I wrote mine on MOOCs. MOOCs burst into the news in the middle of 2012, so my research paper was perfectly timed. It was titled, "Making Sense of MOOCs, Musings in a Maze of Myth, Paradox, and Possibility." And because of the intense interest in MOOCs, it circulated widely on the internet. I have received many invitations to speak about MOOCs ever since, and I'm most grateful to KNOU for giving me a new life as a scholar. Today, I ask you the question, why should KNOU get involved in MOOCs? One answer is that MOOCs are a revolution in higher education, and KNOU should join the revolution. I disagree. MOOCs are important, but they are not a revolution for 3 reasons. First, if you look at the history of universities, you will find education doesn't do revolutions. With hindsight, we can see that developments that looked revolutionary at the time, such as the Humboldtian University in Germany, the land-grant universities in the US, and the Open University in the UK, were merely milestones in the evolution of higher education. Each was gradually absorbed into university life. Second, MOOCs are not really higher education, because the most important power that countries give to their universities is the authority to award degrees and credentials. But most MOOCs do not lead to credentials, at least not yet, so they are not mainstream higher education. Another reason that MOOCs are marginal is that they do not fit into a secure economic framework. Universities offer MOOCs for free, but find it difficult to cover their costs, and I shall come back to that. MOOCs are not a revolution, but they are very important for the future evolution of higher education. And that is why open universities like KNOU should engage with them. As you know very well, most of higher education used to look down on open distance learning as an inferior, low-quality form of education. KNOU, like all open universities, has had to work hard to convince students of its quality and credibility. MOOCs have changed that perception because elite universities like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford were the first to offer them in the US. And that really made all other universities sit up. If Harvard was going online, it must be okay. So a flock of universities decided to create MOOCs. According to a recent count, there are now over 3,000 MOOCs being offered around the world. But the challenges have not changed. Most MOOCs do not lead to credits or credentials, and most universities cannot recover the costs of creating and offering them. That's why it is so important for open universities to engage with MOOCs. I give you 3 reasons. First, open universities like KNOU know how to operate at scale. They have already solved the challenge of assessing thousands of students in a course and awarding credits as appropriate. Conventional universities find that difficult. Harvard is not interested in awarding credits for its MOOCs because it does not want to lessen the scarcity and exclusiveness of a Harvard degree. Other universities might like to offer credits for MOOCs, but they do not have the systems to operate at scale. KNOU can operate at scale and exists to be inclusive, not exclusive. What about the economics? The conventional universities that offer MOOCs have tried various ways to generate income from their MOOCs. The most common is to sell certificates of completion. Now, universities are pretty secretive about the money this generates, but I don't know of any cases where the revenue covers the costs of producing and offering the MOOCs. However, one unconventional university is not secretive about the economy of its MOOCs and is getting a return on its investment. That case should interest you because it is the UK Open University. The UKOU uses MOOCs and its other free media to attract students into its regular programs where they pay fees. The Royal Charter of the UK Open University tells it to promote the educational well-being of the community in general. And it does this through MOOCs, as well as BBC broadcasts and a large pool of open educational resources. The UKOU has carefully tracked those students whose only contact with it before they enrolled as fee-paying students in its regular programs was with its free media. And they amount to some 1,500 students annually, which gives the OU a return of about 8% on its investment in free media. I leave you to reflect on whether KNOU can use MOOCs and open educational resources to attract students to its regular credit programs. The second reason that KNOU should engage with MOOCs is that they give you an opportunity to lead Korea's other universities into the online world. MOOCs have made online learning respectable. So now is the time for you to help the other universities to do open and distance learning well. In both the UK and Japan, the open universities have taken the lead in creating a consortium of traditional universities to offer MOOCs. I myself have taken 2 MOOCs from the UK consortium, which is called Future Learn, and I've just enrolled in a third. The third reason that KNOU should get involved in MOOCs is to help prepare your own online future at KNOU. Now that open and distance learning is suddenly fashionable and respectable, other institutions are jumping in. KNOU must not be complacent about its present teaching model, or it may get left behind. As I have said, you have important assets that other universities don't. You are able to operate at scale, and you are skilled at using technology. Moreover, all the evidence shows that the people who take Moocs are KNOU's natural clientele of working adults. Worldwide, 80% of the people who complete Moocs already have university degrees. So you have a terrific opportunity to offer Moocs for professional development to these people, and then to attract some of them into your regular graduate and continuing education courses. I'll leave it there. I hope I've convinced you that Moocs are not a revolution, but a very important milestone in the evolution of higher education. Engaging with Moocs will help KNOU to find the evolutionary niche in which it can prosper as the future unfolds. Thank you.
We are very grateful for Sir John Daniel, who gave such wonderful congratulatory remarks, even though he is not able to attend. Okay, and this wraps up the first morning session of our workshop. There is an announcement. We will take a group photo, and there will be maybe a 10 minutes, a short break, coffee break. Thank you so much.
Would you come, the older speakers, take a group photo? Okay? So we come. Yeah. Excuse me. 여기에서 아니 근데 그건 나중에 이거 내리고 그다음에 발표 PPT에 소개 많이 소개 네 잠깐만 배경을 이거 풀 스크린
I show you which one like
Okay.
Yes, good to see you. Nice to see you. I'm gonna load my phone.
이거 전에 보낸 거 있나요? 아니면 새 거 갖다 줘요?
저번에 먼저
새
이태리
거는
뮤직을
예,
드렸었죠.
예, 예.
그러면
새 거는 있긴 한데 그래도 아까 그걸로 보내드릴 여기 있죠?
보여드릴게요.
아니면은 저기 다른 거는 안 보여요.
I have to make it larger so I can see it. This one's, yeah. Yes. So you will leave it on. So when I present, I see the screen and I can see it. And then I see it here. Okay, and how do I move forward like this? I can, and I can use this to.
이거 이 글씨는 여기에는 이 화면은 이 화면이 예. 이거를 보셔야 될 것 같아요. 네.
Great. Okay, yes.
예.
Okay.
version 5 on the room to find version 5.
유튜브 아까 이제부터 하는 거.
Perspective, because you sitting the floor.
You can sit.
Okay. By the name of David Cole, member states and
이거 와이파이로 쓰. U 플러스로 쓰는 U 플러스가 그럼 프리가 있고 유료로 된 게 있어요. 그 진공으로 된 게 있어요. 이거 네, 아하. U 플러스죠. 이거만 지금 이거만 이것도 이거는 이 비번이 있거든요. 그래서 더 안전하지 않을까. 알리는 게 어때? 컨트롤도 알리 이거 좀 풀어냈어요. 첫 번째.
And I will use the microphone here. So I just go like that, and how do I get the first line? So leave it like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ladies and gentlemen, let's start the second session. So, in the second session, we invite two great scholars, and so first speaker is Professor Muhammad Ali from the Canada Athabasca University. As you know, all of enjoy his book, Mobile Learning. He's a bestseller in the world. So why not give a big hands to welcome the Muhammad Ali. So his whole career here, so you can enjoy his career. And after I put, what is yours? This one? Oh no, this one, this one, this one. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's good to be in Seoul again. I've visited 42 countries, and after the United States, Korea is the second most visited country. So this is my 6th time in South Korea. So it's good to, it's like a second home. So I work at Athabasca University, which is Canada's open university, is the sister university to Kmooc. And we have 40,000 students in 85 different countries. And also I'm a researcher in the Technology Enhanced Knowledge Research Institute, and my colleagues include George Siemens, Terry Anderson, Rory McGreal, John Drawn, Kmooc. So we do research in ODL. So here's a brief outline of my presentation. I'm going to be give an overview of Kmooc and mobile learning. Talk about how you can deliver Kmooc and mobile technology, very, very important, especially in developing countries. Talk about a few examples of MOOCs that I was involved with, research needed, and kind of look into the future of MOOCs. I'm not very satisfied with the definition of MOOC, so I came up with my own definition. Course delivered free on the web with open enrollment available to anyone from anywhere, but I added the last phrase, and the learners decide on the outcome. I think that's missing in definition of MOOC, because people talk about completion rate of MOOC, the dropout rate of MOOC. It doesn't make sense anymore, because a MOOC is like a free lecture. So most of you have given free lectures before. I just gave a free lecture in Doha, Qatar recently. So I was in Doha for a meeting, and they said, can you come and give a lecture on mobile learning? So there were about 75 people in the audience. And some people came to the lecture to meet me because I'm an expert in mobile learning. Some came because they were lonely, they want to interact with their peers. Some came because they want to learn more about mobile learning. So people attend MOOC for a variety of reasons. So I don't think it makes sense to talk about completion rate and dropout rate of MOOC. And I know a lot of senior officials are saying the dropout rate is very high. I don't think it makes sense for MOOC. So I list a few reasons why people register in MOOC. One of the main reasons, because of restrictions, they can't access the regular course, so they will actually take a MOOC. And a good example is people who live in remote locations. And also in some countries, females cannot go to school. So why not get them to access MOOC using technology, using tablets, smartphones from their homes, their own location. People take it to get credit for professional development. I mentioned interact with the experts, the instructors, interact with others around the world. People take it to learn about MOOC. Sir John Daniel is taking MOOC so he can learn about MOOC. A lot of researchers will take MOOC so that they conduct research. And most MOOCs are delivered by experts in their field, so people will take MOOC to get recent information. And yes, some people are lonely and they just want to interact with people. So there are many, many reasons why people take MOOC. So I don't think we can talk about dropout. And in my presentation in Doha, Qatar, some people came to the free lecture because there was free lunch. And they come for the free lunch. So many, many reasons why people take MOOC. So a MOOC is like a free lecture. We should think of this as a free lecture. In terms of mobile learning, I think it's a good combination of mobile technology and MOOC. And I think it's going to make a difference in education for all. So a quick definition that was developed by a committee, that ISO committee that sets standards for mobile learning, is simply learning using ICT in mobile contexts. So the student, the learner, is mobile, and they will actually access the learning materials using a mobile device. And I started research in mobile learning way back in 2004, and I came up with a definition which is still valid today: delivery of electronic materials using mobile technology so people can learn anywhere, anytime. And my good colleague from South Korea, Jin Sean, came up with a definition in 2008. Learning using mobile and wireless computer technology in a way to promote learners' mobility and nomadicity later. So the actual learner is mobile, and they learn as they move around with the technology. So those are two simple, common definitions for mobile learning. My good colleague, Clark Quinn, came up with the 4 C's of mobile. And if educators are really creative, you can actually use the mobiles in the MOOC courses. So students can actually use the mobile to access content, so they can access the MOOC course using the mobile. And of course, the mobile technology is like a computer. They can use it to do simulation, they can use it to play games, etc. So they should be learning activities in MOOC that get the students to interact with the content and complete activities, so there is higher level learning. And of course, we all know the mobile technology can actually capture information. So perhaps one of the learning activities is for the learners to go out and capture information and present it to the other students in the MOOC and to the professor. And of course, you can use the mobile technology so that students can communicate with each other and communicate with the instructor. So if you really think about it, if you're creative, you can actually use the mobile technology in different ways to involve the students and to promote high-level learning. So here are some benefits of using mobile technology to deliver MOOCs. Students can learn when they're alert. And if you think about it, in education today, when do we start classes in the morning? What time do we start classes? Sometimes 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, and the students are not alert. So they can actually use technology to access the MOOC anytime, anywhere. Reach learners in remote location. Learning is more learner-centered rather than teacher-centered. The students in the remote location that work in the office environment, the job environment, they can actually learn in context. So they can actually apply what they learn right away. Remove barriers to learning. And I developed some 21st century skills that are required for learners to function in the 21st century. And students who use emerging technologies to learn in MOOC, they actually develop some very important skills for the 21st century. And those include independent learner, so they can learn on their own. They are able to use technology, which is important for the workplace today. They do conduct research, which is also important, especially in the information explosion days. One of the issues today is how do you deliver hands-on training online using MOOC? And we need much more research in this area. A lot of countries now are looking to see how you can deliver online hands-on training online using MOOC. And I think we need more research in that area. How do you do online demonstrations in MOOC? how do you have virtual environments so students can actually learn at a high level? And how can people who take MOOCs can do remote access of equipment? And one example of that is we have a space course in our university, and a student can be in South Korea, in Seoul, on a computer or a mobile device, and they can access the telescope in Athabasca, and they can manipulate to look at the sky. Remote access of equipment. So we need to move beyond delivering theory using MOOC, and how can you use MOOC to develop and deliver hands-on training. I think we need much more research in that area. And of course, to design MOOC for mobile technology, you have to design so that it's high quality, because whatever you design for MOOC, it's public. Anyone will look at that course, experts in the field, etc. It has to be current, and it has to be high quality. And there are some figures out there about what does it cost to deliver a high quality MOOC. And the number I see is about 150,000 US dollars to deliver a high quality MOOC course. Should be designed in small chunks for mobile technology, so students can access a small chunk, complete the small chunk, and then move on to the next chunk. And another reason is because a lot of people who take MOOC are very busy people. They tend to work full time. So it's good to present small chunks of information. And we should make sure that if someone wants credit for a course, they have the opportunity to write an exam or complete an assignment to get credit. So I mentioned the cost to develop a good MOOC is about 150,000 US. So here's a list of some of the things that you have to assemble to prepare a good MOOC. You have to use a team approach, because in most cases it's multimedia, it has video, you need a computer expert. You need to train or pay the instructor to deliver the MOOC. There has to be tutor support. And of course, because it involves technology, you need technology support. So organizations have to plan to assemble the appropriate team to prepare quality MOOCs and to deliver the MOOCs. So why do organizations get into MOOCs? What are the benefits for organizations? Many, many benefits, and these are some reasons why they're actually getting into MOOCs. Increase revenue, because when students take the MOOC, they will decide to take other courses, they will enroll in other courses, and as a result, there is more tuition fee that the university organization gets. It attracts new students. So for example, if a organization delivers a MOOC in Asia, and the organization is based in the US, then some Asian students will get exposed to the university, and they could register to take the entire program. A lot of organizations are delivering MOOC to sell the brand. So if KNOU, for example, deliver a MOOC around the world, the name KNOU will be known around the world. So it's a way of selling the brand. Research opportunities, a lot of organizations, a lot of researchers are looking at MOOC, participating in MOOC, delivering MOOC for research, improve access. And if a university organization deliver MOOC, then they're seen as being innovative. And they will get more funding, and they will get more respect from other universities. So many, many benefits for organization to get involved in MOOC. So the first MOOC was delivered by George Siemens from Athabasca, who is now at Athabasca, and Stephen Downs. And there were 2,300 students enrolled, and 25 paid tuition. I was involved in a MOOC with the Kmooc of Learning and the IIT from India, and there is a final report, just some information on that final report. Here's a screenshot for that MOOC. And in this screenshot, if you take a look, I call this a CMOOC because students were able to collaborate with each other. So there was a chat room. If you take a look on the left-hand side, there were forums. Students were able to take quizzes and tests to get certification, etc. And if you look at the resources, we had slides, and we actually had script, which is text of the slide, of the videos. So students in countries who did not have smartphone, they can actually just download the text and read the text. So you have to design for the least common denominator, very important. And this is just a list of all of the courses that were offered in the MOOC. Just quickly, some statistics. There were over 2,200 registrations from 116 countries. 63% were active. 333 students were able to receive certificate of competence. So students who complete the MOOC were given a certificate of completion, and students who passed the exam were actually given certificate of competency. So it's very important to certify students. MOOC in the Arab world is starting to implement MOOC. And Queen Rania from Jordan, she just started a foundation called IDRAC, and they're working with the major MOOC providers to deliver MOOC in the Arab region, in Arabic language. A recent MOOC in Saudi Arabia by RWAQ. Interesting, the courses offered, most of the courses that they offered were in science and technology and engineering, which is different from the North American model, where most of the courses were actually theory courses. And just quickly, number of sessions between over 8 months were 920,000. There were about 350,000 users. And there were enrollment from 10 different countries. The most students came from Saudi Arabia, followed by Egypt and Morocco. And the MOOC was delivered in Arabic. Some students use mobile devices to access the MOOC, which is important because in some countries, all that they have are mobile devices. They don't have desktop computers. So about 27 to 26% actually use mobile technology to access the MOOC. Research needed. For those who are looking for a research topic, how to design MOOC for different cultures. How do you design the same MOOC for different cultures? Because you have many countries, people in many countries taking MOOC. How do you build interactivity so you have high-level learning in MOOC? What learning support is needed for MOOC? How do you design MOOC for different age group? Because when people take MOOC, they take MOOC for professional development, for certification. So you may have young people from university, you may have older people who are in their 50s and 60s. So how do you design for the different age group? How do you integrate different learning activities like problem-based learning, simulation, and games, hands-on, etc.? We need to look more analytics on MOOCs. And what's the role of MOOC in distance education, blended learning, and flipped classroom? How do we integrate MOOC into these different delivery modes? Future MOOC will be shorter in terms of course length. So rather than take a 36-hour course, the MOOC course will be very short, maybe 10, 12 hours. Need to build a case that MOOC and mobile are effective to convince decision makers. So we need more data on MOOCs to show the effectiveness. And don't talk about completion rate or dropout rate. Talk about how it benefits other segments of society. Must be delivered to develop to delivery on any technology. And we need to develop so that we can achieve education for all. So I think combination of mobile and MOOC, which is free, will actually help achieve education for all. And I think that's something UNESCO is trying to look at. And this is a quote from Nelson Mandela. I had a chance to deliver a speech at UNISA in South Africa. And he says, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And with MOOC and mobile technology, you can reach everyone so that you can give them a basic education level so that we can change the world. So we have major responsibilities. We have to make sure we live up to the responsibilities. Thank you. You have time for questions?
After the finishing of the three speakers, let's have a Q&A, okay? Thank you. And the next speaker is In Sang Jung. Actually, we start from the a little delayed. So 있어요. 이건가? 이거. 세 개. 짧게 주는 건가? 아니면 괜찮아? Okay, 20 minutes.
Let me
Just
introduce.
No, I will introduce myself. Okay. Hello. Good morning. Still good morning. Okay. After this session is over, we will have lunch break. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. How are you, everyone? So far, so good. Okay, we have heard 3 or 4 presentations already, short one and keynote speakers. Several people mentioned about pedagogy of the book, which is not new. We already have extensive research result on pedagogy of online learning and distance education. So many of those findings can be applied in MOOC. But many people think the MOOC is very revolutionary. It's a very new one. So we need to think about pedagogy from the scratch, which is not true. We already have enough knowledge on pedagogy. But it's just this is a new kind of new packaging, new evolutionary, new phenomena. So what we need to do is use our application skills, how to apply those knowledge that we already know to design a better MOOCs and to make MOOCs a successful story. Okay, MOOCs, many people say it's to offer world-class education to everyone. That was the beginning of the MOOCs. The value was this one, but there are some changes in recent years, especially the Udacity and some other MOOC organizations. They are going more toward targeted open online courses, not massive, because they find it's not easy to realize this their mission, their vision. So here is the challenge. It's for everyone. Everyone has different learning styles. They have different levels of readiness to take online courses. Online courses is not easy. I wonder how many of you have actually take any of the MOOC courses. Okay, is it easy? Not easy. Time management is an issue. And I have taken 2 or 3. I couldn't finish. I was determined to finish this one. I want to be a successful e-learner, but it was very, very difficult. Time is one issue. But more importantly, the content is not easy to understand. I took some of the content that I have never taken before. It wasn't easy. I listened to the video lecture, a very famous person from, I think, Harvard or MIT. Difficult to understand. They give us a list of optional readings. Readings are mostly optional. And then I read some of those, couldn't understand what they're talking about. By the way, I have a doctoral degree, which everyone, I don't think they have a doctoral degree, or even those who have a degree in different fields, very difficult to finish, complete, or learn anything. We will learn something, of course, but it's not organized discipline. So I like to challenge that, is it for everyone? And then talk a little bit about the pedagogical issues. Because learners are so different in terms of their levels, their styles, and maybe their interests, their needs. How can you effectively teach a large number of learners who are so different from different cultural background simultaneously? Because it's just a massive online open courses. So this is definitely pedagogical issues. And besides that, we have some values. The educators have some values about, some ideas or beliefs about teaching and learning, which are different. Some people, learning is memorizing important facts. But some people, learning is changing behavior. Some people connect,
I mean, this knowledge is distributed, so we understand diversity in ideas. That's learning. So we have educator side, we have different values, different beliefs, different assumptions about learners. And then learner side, they have different styles, different needs, different readiness. So that's a big challenge, and that's why this is a very, very interesting area as an educators, as a policymakers, as a researcher, and then as a student. So many people talk about this early MOOC. Actually, the early MOOC is based on connectivism. Connectivism and connective knowledge was the first class, originated in Canada. University of Manitoba, and 4 of these scholars, educators, were engaged in this program, and they are following this specific pedagogical approach and help learners orient, declare. Declare is same as like posting their messages. I mean their ideas, network, cluster, and focus. So basically, this MOOC, even it wasn't called MOOC. The term MOOC came out of this class. During this class, one of the students, I heard this story from one of these teachers, MOOC they didn't create. It was created, actually mentioned by the student who are taking this class. Oh, this is a MOOC. So that time there was, of course, there was some video component, but it wasn't the main component. The main component was email. Every week they will have an email networking announcement. And then discussions, some materials. So it wasn't based on video lectures. It was more like connecting people around the world, share different ideas. Okay? And you know this George Simon's connectivism. They try to improve ability of the learners to see connections between fields, ideas, concepts. So they try to build on those kind of pedagogical ideas into their course design. But when it came to United States, who took this MOOC idea, another small one was Jim Groom's course, but I like this idea of open assessment. Open assessment is a very unique pedagogical strategy he introduced in his class, is to assess each other's work. It's more like similar to peer assessment, which is now a very important part of Coursera MOOCs. So that's another some innovative idea, pedagogical idea at the early MOOC. The truly massive open online courses were developed by Thrun. And then another Stanford University faculty members who are specialized in artificial intelligence. Their focus was to present high-quality Stanford courses to the world. So which means converting face-to-face classes online was the basic idea. That was the basic pedagogy of their MOOCs, the first MOOC. So they have a video lectures, which are shorter. That's the main component, showing the interaction between teacher and student who are in the classroom. Stanford students, very bright students. That's one as a basic component. And then they have a heavy reading. I mean, these days it's becoming optional, but that time it was required. And then completing assignment. There are heavy assignments embedded in the course and taking quizzes and exam. So it was very similar to the face-to-face classroom. I think you may remember that when we first introduced e-learning, we tried to convert our face-to-face classroom on online. Right? A very similar phenomenon happened with the book. Okay, so Thrun was very excited, and then 2011 and 12, which New York Times announced 2012 was the year of the MOOC. he said in 50 years there will be only 10 universities delivering higher education around the world, because he was so excited. He got this course attracted 160,000 students, right? So very excited, and MOOCs are moving so fast that we won't recognize colleges as we know them in 5 years. That's what he said at the beginning. But 2013, after he established the Udacity, and he said, designed MOOCs for type of self-motivated, bright student he taught at Stanford. That was the spirit when he first designed his MOOC class. And then he said that was not the right assumption about the learners. Our learners are not the brightest student who can direct their learning. I mean, self-directedness in learning is very, very critical skills that they need to have to succeed in MOOCs. But many of them don't. And then he said, Udacity's MOOCs, a lousy product. He even mentioned this to one of my friends, actually. A lousy product to use for educating underprepared college students. So he did, he's still doing an experiment credit exchange program with San Jose State University. And I think it's for the credits. His MOOCs are for the credit. Udacity's MOOCs are for the credits, but many of the students fail. So they are not the brightest students who can actually complete these self-disciplined, self-regulated learning courses. So we need to think about the MOOCs in terms of pedagogy, which means we need to question whether this form of MOOCs can actually serve everyone. My answer is no, not everyone. Unless there is support. Extensive support, I am sure that KNOU already know, it's not for everyone. Even with the support, extensive support, many fail. Okay, so the present model has been developed, evolved, and now we have a self-study model. Some people say Kmooc, but then Kmoocs or Kmoocs are not. It's a very blurry. The distinction is pretty blurry, and there are interaction component, but interact with peers, mostly peers who may have a little bit better advanced knowledge than yours. But in many cases, you don't know. I mean, they're not carefully designed. Even the interaction should be very carefully designed so that students who are engaged in interaction should have gained some knowledge, improve their knowledge through the interaction. But interaction usually just provide forum and discussion sessions and then let them discuss. And there may be some interventions by tutors or teachers, but they are minimum because I think cost issues. And very famous teachers, I don't think they have time to interact with that many students, right? So that's an issue. But then the good news is there a blended model came out. MOOCs is used within the context of flipped learning that Professor Ali mentioned. And Coursera's are encouraging actually use MOOCs for lecture, for real face-to-face classrooms. So we see some of the new pedagogical models are emerging. Okay, but the criticism is that lack of effort to relate the pedagogy of MOOCs to the rich body of research that had already been done on how to teach at distance in the online education effectively. So we already, as I mentioned, we already have the data. We already know what works, what doesn't work. But then I think we need to, in the future, we need to make sure that we apply our knowledge what we know to improve the quality of MOOCs. And the pedagogy of MOOCs should consider our knowledge on successful online learner competencies, concept of openness, feature of other learners, and cultural variances. Somebody mentioned about the cultural variance. Culture plays very important role in the success of online learning. So I'd like to mention a little bit about each point. Successful online learner competencies are very important. When you, a student, is in your classroom, you can see whether they, from their face, maybe, it's easier to spot whether they are learning or not, whether they are having difficulties or not. But in online class, in this kind of MOOC class, it's almost impossible to know that. But then it's important. That's why it's more important than in a face-to-face class. Whether in the face-to-face class, we may not have to worry too much about the students' competencies because the higher education, they are already selected. They're selective of group of students who are sitting in the classroom, and then you are facing them, looking at them with a small number of students. In many cases, a pretty small number of students compared to this massive class. So in the massive class, I think we need to pay attention what kind of students are successful in online classes. Of course, degree, somebody who has already gone through higher education. Somebody who has a very strong motivation to complete this course. Time management skills. Self-directedness is the most important competency of successful online learners. Ability to stay on task. If you just move around and search on internet, then you're not a good online learner. So we need to maybe pay more attention to those kind of online learner competencies and give them to develop that kind of competencies even before offering the MOOC. Just offering the MOOC, I don't think that will lead to the success. Okay. And another one that I found is that it's based on my experience taking a MOOC. They asked me to do Twitter, social networking, different kind of social networking, which I do. I do often sometimes, but I'm not very familiar with the details. Hashtag and all different kinds of techniques of Twitter. But they asked me to do it, which means there is a technology competencies that we need to develop in order to fully engage in Kmooc, connective knowledge sharing. So I like to emphasize MOOC is not easy. Another concept is openness. MOOC is open in terms of access. That's it. I don't think MOOC focuses on any individual needs, any flexibility and choices in course content, methods, study paths that ODL universities are now integrating. So we need to review the concept of open in the MOOC, and then maybe offer more choices, adopt not just access, but in other aspects. And MOOC targets, the target audience of the MOOC is, I will finish within 2 minutes, adult learners. But adult learners have different needs, learning needs. I like to point out that they want some very practical knowledge. They want to use their experience in discussions. So And then another point is the cultural subcultural variances. The maybe female will have different needs than male students. And Asian culture is known as very high context culture and high in power distance index, visually oriented. That's why we have been providing video-based lectures, even in a very early stage. This is not, MOOC format is new to Western society, because it's mostly based on text-based, especially United States. So that's why they're so excited. But for example, taking an example of KNOU, Malaysia, China, we have been providing this very famous scholars come to the video lectures and provide video lectures. That's very common format in Asian culture. So I like to think about this Asian culture learners' specific needs and their styles. Asian learners are also very interested in well-structured content and taught by well-recognized expert instructors' orientations. So considering all those pedagogical considerations, I like to suggest that we could have these 3 different kinds of models, which is, this is not my creation. It's more terminologies that we have been using. Associative model, very structured content with interactivity integrated, which is very similar to today's MOOC. And then I want to consider cognitive inquiry model, which will have a structured learning environment, but instead of content specific, discipline specific, we go for task problem based model, which will be more attractive to adult learners. If you are targeting adult learners who are interested in agricultural aspect, then instead of giving them a lecture based on the content, disciplinary content, we will give more problem-solving kind of adapt problem-solving approach in designing the MOOCs. Another one is situative model, which is more so case-based, scenario-based. It's more like a solving problem together kind of model. And then I think it's important to consider cultural aspects, such as, like, for example, for Asian culture, I strongly maybe encourage people to think about visual MOOC, kind of not the heavy text-based MOOC, but maybe more visual-based MOOC. Talk with the expert sessions, blended with face-to-face sessions will be very helpful. Adult learners, they like to have more choices, options in terms of learning paths and learning content, and grouping, and maybe frequent reminders which can be sent out automatically. We need to consider the cost aspect as well. I think that's it. Okay, I'm sorry that I had to miss some of the points that I was going to say. Thank you.
So next session is the discussant, from Minister of Education, Chonong Kim, So he mentioned about our Minister of Education view and review our speaker presentation there. Okay. 그쵸. 근데 저기 기기 갖고 가지고.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for organizers of this workshop, especially Professor Lee, inviting me to this workshop. When I was first asked to make a speech at the workshop, I was quite hesitant because it was just a week after I took over the job to handle the developing Korean MOOC in the Ministry of Education. So I didn't have much information and knowledge to speak about in the workshop. But I soon realized that that will be a very good opportunity for me to see and learn how other countries developed moves in their own countries. So I changed mind to participate in the workshop. I'm participating in the workshop as a discussant, meaning that I have to make a comment on previous speakers' presentation. But sorry, I'd like to seek some understanding from you that the main reason the organizer asked me to make a speech in this workshop is to present to you what are the current situation on developing Korean MOOC and what are the government's work plan toward this purpose. So I'd like to take just 10 minutes to share with you what we have done to develop the Korean MOOC. As you are well aware, MOOC started in 2012 by US universities and has rapidly evolved into a global service with millions of learners enrolled in several platforms based in the USA and some Western countries. This success of MOOC in US has led to a launching of MOOCs by universities in Asian countries and other countries. In case of Korea, I heard at the previous presentation, some speakers mentioned Korea is lagging behind. Normally, Korea is a fast mover in adopting new technology in IT, but when it comes to MOOCs, we are lagging behind. So we have to move fast to catch up the global trend. So the government has been rather slow in embracing MOOC until President Park Geun-hye emphasized on the need to introduce MOOC at a Blue House Senior Eyes meeting in late 2013. With President Park's intention, the Ministry of Education has been actively working on the Korean version of MOOC. A research team has been composed with participation of experts from the National Institute for Lifelong Learning, Korea Education and Research Information Service, and the Ministry of Education. At the beginning of the policy research, the Ministry of Education approached the MOOC with a perspective to enhance lifelong learning rather than innovating university teaching and learning. This is why the Bureau for Lifelong Learning and Vocational Education in the Ministry of Education had been assigned to lead the policy research. However, we soon realized that MOOC may not be successful without the participation and support of leading universities, such as Seoul National University, Korea University, Yonsei University, KAIST, etc. So the Office for University Support took over the job, and my division recently joined the policy research team to develop MOOC. We've drawn up a very initial step of work plan to develop MOOC. Since we are yet to further elaborate on the work plan, I'd like to confess that we have yet a little to share with you on the development of the policy research. However, with this limitation, I'd like to share with you some little progress made so far. Firstly, the Ministry of Education has included in the year 2015's budget proposal a budget for developing a Korean MOOC. Over $2 million in Korean won, 250 billion won is going to be funded for this purpose in 2015. And the Nile, I'm very hesitant to say about this because, but I think there will be great room for us to collaborate with participation of KNOU to develop MOOC. But Nile currently, Nile and its full name is the National Institute for Lifelong Learning, is going to act as a body to develop and provide a platform on Korean MOOC. With this platform, universities will be invited to join the Kmooc. The platform will be developed in 2015, and some courses will be developed and uploaded online. This number of courses will be expanded year on. Finally, lastly, I would like to share with you some my own thoughts on what impact the Korean MOOC will make in Korean higher education. Since I was involved in the MOOC, I was repeatedly told that the MOOC may occur a side effect. Local universities will be taken by leading universities. The the higher education market will lead to domination of a few giant universities and faculties. So whenever I heard this, whenever I heard this kind of concern and worry, my answer is no, don't worry. The side effect may occur, but its impact won't be considerable. Rather, the positive impact from developing MOOC will be much bigger than its negative impact. Then what are those positive impacts from MOOC in Korea? In my opinion, this will enable many university students and learners to access high-quality courses from top universities. As you are aware, as you may know, Korea's education fever is very high, and it's a competition to entering so-called Sky University is very high. So this make students unhappy because only few selected students can enter so those Sky universities. So with MOOC, opportunities can be given to the other, left university, the other so-called the other students to access high quality, famous lectures given from so-called Sky universities. This is just my own opinion. Secondly, this will lead to innovation of teaching, learning in universities. Flipped learning and blended learning will become more and more universal in university classrooms. Professors will compete to enhance his teaching methods, as he can see how his colleague professors teach through a MOOC. And perhaps the tuition could be lowered. I have to come to the end of this discussion. I anticipate that Korea MOOC, even though we start late, we will soon catch up MOOCs in other countries and may join the leaders in this global movement. Thank you very much.
So even we have a short time, but one or two questions to all the speakers, keynote speaker, and not John Daniel, and the other the speakers. One or two questions. Do you have any? Oh, in some. Do you need a mic here? Yeah. Okay. We need a mic.
Very much. Sorry for the Dr. Kim,
Kim.
Ministry of Education.
Right.
I'm pretty much disappointed actually about the government's approach to MOOCs. Because as I told you during my presentation, it's not totally new. It's not something that we need to grab, we need to advance. We are already advanced in terms of e-learning, online education. We already have the basics. We know that the best researchers, best scholars are not the best teachers. There is many case studies done with MOOCs, recent MOOCs with Stanford University teachers and Harvard University scholars, and students said, learners said, they are not the best. They are not the best online learning, best courses. Some of them are very good. Some teachers are naturally very good in delivering online education, but they are very famous in their field. They are not great. They are great mathematicians, they are great computer scientists, they are great educators, but not the best teachers online. Because we know that online learning, good ones, need different pedagogical approaches. So that have been ignored. I don't know the details, but somebody from Seoul National University, somebody from Yonsei University, I don't think that makes good, high quality distance education. I think we should invite Kmooc or Cyber University, because that's the basis. You know Tony Bates. Tony Bates, who have been serving in this field for many, many years. He's very, very famous in our field, who have been studying distance education. He decided to retire after seeing this MOOC hype fever. I think it's a good thing that we decide to target everyone in the country to access high quality education. But inviting the good universities as KY universities does not guarantee high quality work. I think we need to consider that approach.
Okay, thank you. Is there any question? Huh? Oh, GJ, you have mentioned.
Sorry, because I was expecting some questions from some of you, since you didn't ask me long to I agree with what Professor Kim said. Sorry, Director Kim, I share this point in a way. We all know that Sky professors may not be the best professors. When it comes to this, I'm not looking at professors now.
That's true.
Yes, they may be the best when it comes to research, but not teaching. So I think books, I have a couple of advice for you, those who are from the government side. One is, because MOOCs is a new phenomenon, because there's a potential, as we said, there's some downside or some risk. Despite the risk, you should fight. But when you say you catch up, you made it that one. What are the things that you need to catch up? First of all, I'm not sure whether there's any best model that for Korea to catch up. Perhaps maybe better Koreans to think in terms of making their own. And I can say this to Malaysian, or Thai, or Indonesian as well. But Asian speaker, as I said in my presentation, is mainly from the few countries in the West, mainly live in English language. As Professor John said, Asians, I'm not entirely sure Asians are more in visual things. They like a more visual than text-based. Not sure if this is you have some evidence, but so number one, don't try to catch up, but try to create your own books. And it's good that the government has this willingness, this passion, to set aside a budget to support this Kmooc, whatever you call it, with your own, that's not one advice to you. For Professor Chen and others from academia, I think, like I said, this all, in my philosophy, should be based on solid pedagogy, no matter how you deliver it, through conventional approach, brick and mortar approach, online, whatever name you use, the basis, the fundamental of teaching and learning has to be good quality pedagogy. And this pedagogy for ASEANs, although I'm not entirely agree with Professor Chan, if it is about visual, more visual, it's a more problem-based approach, more interactive. In my personal, this requires the resources for professors to develop, for institutions to invest, and this requires money and injection of money from somewhere, as Sir Daniel said about sustainability. So if these books cannot sustain itself out of its own generating income, it has to be financed elsewhere. I think the government is best positioned to support this. So create Korean unique book, and with the full support from the government and institution, from the leadership. But the last but not least, when it comes to books, be it Korean or ASEAN book, once again, I think because this is new, more than anything else, we need to undertake kind of feasibility more than anything. We need to look deep into what is happening from pedagogical perspective, policy perspective. If I want to spend some money, direct again, like you have lots of money, I will commission a study to look into these different aspects of which, at this point in time, again, from pedagogical perspective, from university administrative perspective, from policy perspective, how feasible it is for Koreans, ASEANs, to create their own books. So, and then, based on this solid research, you may think of allocating funds to different activities, again, to support books which in itself is not sustainable.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, that address is a mobile. You can watching in your mobile this meeting simultaneously, real time. So you can access this address. You can watching our conference on your mobile. Okay, there is a Darim system, the totally integrated system, service for that kinds of many services. It's a new one. So yesterday I contacted with the company, so we installed this facility together. But in the morning session I lost this message. You know, you can access in the mobile. You can watching presentation and all this in the. So let's close morning session and let's have a lunch. In the fifth floor, there is a terrace, the fifth floor seminar room and terrace. You can have the lunch box, Korean style. Another is sandwich for as you please. You can choose. Okay, let's go up fifth floor. Okay, let's go.